Well, I'm going to tell you a story about the most beautiful woman in the world. Now, this woman was named Silvertree, and she was a queen of a faraway country. She had a beautiful daughter named Goldtree. But Silvertree had for many years been known as the most beautiful woman in the world. And every year she would confirm this by going out to this magical pool in the forest. And there she would talk to this magical trout. Well, this year she decided to take Goldtree along with her. Goldtree is her teenage daughter, and she's really a stunner. So the two of them go out, and Silvertree walks to the edge of the pool. There's kind of a rock overhang, and she looks down and she says, "Trouty, trouty, come, come." And up rises this mossy old trout. And she says, "Trouty, tell me true. Am I still the most beautiful woman in the world?" And the first time the trout has ever hesitated, he says, "Well, indeed not, my queen." She says, "What?" And she is about to freak. "Well, if not I, then whom?" And he says, "Well, your daughter, Goldtree, and proud you should be to have mothered such a one." Well, she was anything but proud. So she races back to the castle, and she goes in her bedroom and she locks the door, and she throws all the pillows off her bed and lies there and cries and makes herself sick crying. Well, her king comes home from his kingly hunting and pillaging, and he loves her dearly, and he comes to her chamber, and she won't let him in. She's in there crying and carrying on something terrible. He says, "What's wrong, my love? What's wrong?" And she says, "I'm sick unto death." And he says, "Well, what can I do? How can I help?" She says, "I want the heart and liver of Goldtree to eat." Well, the king has to consider this for a moment. So he goes away, and he figures out what he's going to do. There's been this prince across the sea that's been asking for Goldtree's hand in marriage for a long time. And he thinks this might be a very good time for her to go across the sea. So he sends her off in a boat, and he goes to his huntsman and says, "Go to the woods and find me a big, bring me its heart and liver." So they do so, and he takes it to the kitchen and has it prepared with this wonderful sauce, and serves it on a silver platter. And she allows him in the room, and she sits and eats, and unbelievably, she just savors every bite of it. And as she eats, she looks better and better. It's really helping her. So by the time she's done, she's back to her normal self. So everything goes back to normal around the castle until the next year rolls around, and it's time to go back to the pool. So she goes to the pool and she says, "Trouty, trouty, come, come." And up rises the mossy old trout. She says, "Trouty, am I still the most beautiful woman in the world?" He says, "I'm sorry, but no." She says, "What?" And "Who then?" He says, "Why, your daughter Goldtree, and proud you should be to have mothered such a one." She says, "That's impossible. I ate her heart and liver." He says, "She lives. She's married to a prince in the country across the sea." Well, back to the castle she goes again. She wheedles a boat out of her kingly husband. Who knows what he was thinking to give her a boat? Who knows what kings think anyway? But across the ocean she goes again. She goes to see her daughter. So Goldtree is walking along the walls of the castle, and she looks out to the sea, and she sees this boat approaching, and she recognizes it as belonging to her father, and she knows who's in it, and she knows what's going to happen. So she runs back into the castle, and the prince is out doing his princely hunting and pillaging, and so he's no help. So she goes to the servants, and they come up with the idea that they will lock her in her room and take away her key, and she can tell her mother that the prince locked her in there, and she can't come out to meet her. So that sounds like the best idea so far. So that's what takes place, and Silvertree approaches the door and knocks, and she says, "I can't let you in, mother, for the prince has the key, and I can't get out, and you can't get in." And so Silver Tree thinks, well, she said that he's not much of a husband, I have to say. But why don't you just stick your little finger through the keyhole and let me kiss it? Well, Gold Tree is a little reluctant because, she's not had too much good luck with her mother so far. But she sticks her finger through the keyhole. Silver Tree stabbed it with a poison knife. Gold Tree falls down dead behind the door. When the prince comes home from his princely hunting and pillaging that day, he finds his wife that he's insanely in love with dead. Well, he can't give her up, so he makes a crystal coffin and puts her in it and leaves her in her bedroom, and he keeps the door locked. And he goes in there every night after dinner and cries over the loss of Gold Tree. Well, pretty soon things around the castle are not going so well because you need somebody to manage all the servants and all the business of running the place. And so he decides he's going to have to marry again. And he finds a woman she's a little older, but she's very wise, and she's handsome, but she's not gorgeous. And she has kind of a little bit of a magical thing about her. So he brings her back to the castle, and she takes good care of everything. But every night he goes away from the dinner table, and he reappears with his eyes all swollen and red, and he's obviously been crying. But he won't tell her what's in there, and he has the only key. Well, one day he forgot his key. He left it in the castle, and second wife found it. So she goes and unlocks the door and opens it up, and there, lying in this crystal coffin, is the most beautiful woman she's ever seen. She says, wow, that must be the most beautiful woman in the world. And so she walks up to the coffin, and she's looking around and everything, and she sees on the little finger of this beautiful woman a little cut, and she feels compelled to kiss it. And so she opens the casket, kisses the finger, and Gold Tree sits up. Well, this is good news. But second wife has this idea that she's been thinking on for a while. So she persuades Gold Tree to stay in the room, and Prince comes home, and he's kind of sad and everything, and he's sitting at the dinner table, and second wife says, if I could make you happy, what would you give me? He says, anything you want, but you can't do it because the only thing I want, you can't give me. So she says, well, what if I could? Would you give me my dowry back and set me free? And he says, I'll give you anything you want, because he knew she wasn't going to be able to. So she takes him by the hand and takes him to Gold Tree's door and begins to push it open. And he's about to get mad at her because she's not supposed to be able to get in there. But then he looks and sees Gold Tree sitting there. And so he's overwhelmed, and he runs and he rushes up and hugs her and kisses her. And they kiss and cuddle on every flat surface in the room. And then later on, the dinner resumes downstairs. And second wife says, well, are you going to keep your promise? And he says, yes, I will, but I'd rather you'd stay. And Gold Tree begins to beg her not to go. She says, I'm the most beautiful woman in the world, and everybody hates me. They're jealous of me, and they hate me, and my mother is trying to kill me. You're the only friend I have. Please don't go. So second wife decides she'll stay for a while. Everything rolls along pretty good till the next year, when it's time to go back to the pool. And Silver Tree goes down to the pool and says, Trotty, Trotty, come. And up rises the old trout. Well, she says the same old thing. Am I still the most beautiful woman in the world? And the trout says, I'm sorry, but you're not. And who then? And he says, why, Gold Tree, your daughter. And proud you should be to have mothered such a one. Well, here she goes again. So she says, she goes back and she gets a boat. She goes back across the ocean. Once again, Gold Tree sees her coming, knows what's going to happen, but this time she has second wife to go to. And second wife says, just calm down. We can handle this. And she takes Gold Tree by the hand, and they go down to the docks to meet the boat. Well, Silver Tree gets off the boat with all kinds of flourishes, and she's got this big silver goblet in her hand, and she says, let's drink to our reunion. And second wife steps in and says, but we have a kind of a custom in this country that if you make the toast, you take the first sip. So Goldtree hesitates, but then she puts it up to her mouth because she's just going to pretend to take a swallow because you know it's poison. And so she puts it up to her mouth, and second wife takes the heel of her hand and hits the bottom of the cup, and Silvertree falls down dead from the poison. So that's a nice resolution to the whole thing. Then they're all having dinner, and second wife says, well, I'm going to leave now. You're going to keep your promise, right? And the prince said, yes, I will. And prepares all of her stuff and everything. And Goldtree is begging her not to go. Please don't go. She said, what will you do? I mean, you won't have any place to live, and you won't have any prince or anything. And second wife says, well, I won't stay, but I'll give you a couple of pieces of advice. And second wife says, don't put too much importance on castles and princes and the privileges of royalty. And the second thing is, don't ever believe a talking trout. That's the end.